Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Patrick here from All Things Mathematics, and moving on to the next example dealing with statistics. So again, as usual, as I mentioned before getting into this, if you don't want to write all of this out, you can go to the website, allthingsmathematics.com, and for this specific course, there will be a link in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube where it'll take you to the lecture notes. It'll take you to the course page and then the lecture notes that are in PDF. So you could print them out. You don't have to write all of this information out for these videos. And then you'll see all the videos are organized in a certain order by unit, by section, etc., etc. So in this particular question, we are told that everyone in a 120-person company was asked how much they have in their retirement savings account. The distribution is given here, right? So the people that said from 0 to 50 was 32, from 50 to 100, 47, etc., etc. And given this information, we have to find the relative and cumulative frequency. And then part B and C, part B, what percentage of people had above 150,000 in savings? And then 50% of the company had above what savings amount? Okay, so B and C is going to be one of those interpolation questions that we went through in the previous video if you're watching this on the website. Because if you notice, this 150,000, notice it doesn't fall smoothly on one of the ends of the interval, right? It's going to be like within this here, so we're going to have to like linearly interpolate for B and C. Okay, so it's going to be one of those questions. But before we do that, let's do part A. So I'm going to add another column here, and then this is going to be what? The relative frequency. Okay, because we have the frequency already, right? The number of people, that's the frequency. So relative frequency, we would do like 32 over 120, right? 47 over 120, 21 over 120. We're trying to basically get the percentages here of the total amount of people in the company. And so when you do all of those values divided by 120, here are the relative frequencies that you would get. And so what does this mean? It means, like, for example, that 27% of the people in the company had between 0 and 50,000 in savings, et cetera, right? And then you got these other percentages here. Now, if you add all these up, these should always add up to 1. And if you do, you would notice that they do add up to 1. And then they also want for part A to find the cumulative frequency. So if you remember from previous videos, all you do is you basically go up the table and then just add up whatever is in that row plus the accumulation or the sum of the relative frequencies before that. So 0.27, notice that there's nothing before that. So that's just going to be 0.27. Then we're going to have 0.27 plus 0.39. That would give us what? 0.66. Then 0.66 plus 0.175. That would give us 0.835. Then over here we'll have 0.875. Then 0.875 plus 0.025 would give us 1, right? And then the last value in a cumulative frequency column should always be 1, as we have mentioned that before. Okay, so that's basically part A, and yeah, that's just part A. So now let's go to part B. So what percentage of people had above 150,000 in savings? Well, notice that the 150,000, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's falling in between this 100 and 200,000. Okay, so we're actually going to have to interpolate this, and I'll do that at the end. But definitely what's going to be included in this percentage is the people that have savings from 200,000 to 300,000, which is 14%, and then from 300,000 and above, that's 2.5%. Right? So we definitely know that those two percentages are going to be there. We have to figure out how many or what percentage of people from this interval here are above 150,000. Okay, so if we show this kind of visually, we have from 100 to 200, like that. that's representing 0.175. That's basically 17.5% of people there. So 150 is going to be, notice it's like right in the middle of 100 and 200. And so basically, of that, because from here to here, right, this is 17.5%, or let's keep it in decimals, 0.175 of the company, or 17.5% of the company. Well, we want the people that are from 150 to 200. And notice that that is half, right? That's exactly half right here. And so we only want half right here of the 0.175. And 0.175 divided by 2 would give us 0.0875, right? If we're going to interpolate it. Now, what if this wasn't exactly 150? Let's say it was another number like 160 or 170 where it's not exactly half. How would we be able to get this number here? Well, what we can do is we could figure out what is the difference between these two. Like, how much is this area of this area right here? So we could say, okay, 200 minus 150 divided by the width of the entire interval right here, and that's going to give us the percentage that we are looking for. And basically that same percentage is what of 0.175, like that. So that's how you can set it up, right? If you were going to linearly interpolate this, right? If this 150 was some other number where it doesn't give us like a smooth 50%. So if this was like 160, you would have what? 40 over 100, which would be 0.4, and then you're trying to find out, well, what is 40% going to be of 0.175? Because if you do this here, what would you end up getting? You'd get 0.5 equals x over 0.175, and then if you cross multiply here, right, you get x equaling 0.0875, which is half of 0.175. So whatever percentage you would get here when you do this cross multiplication, that x value that you end up getting is going to be that percentage of people that you'd be looking for, right? So if you're looking for, maybe we should have done the question where maybe it was like above 180,000 in savings, right? You would just change this 150 to 180,000, right? This isn't thousand, so this would be what, 20 over 100, so this would be 0.2, and you'd be only looking at 20% of this 0.175. Right? And that would be the percentage that goes here. Okay, but we were looking for 150, and that just happened to fall right in the middle of 100 and 200, so it wasn't bad, so we just took 50% of that 0.175. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense there. And so summing these two up, you end up with 0.25, or summing these three up, sorry, you end up with 0.2525, which is basically 25.25%. Right? So that ends up being the answer for part B. And then moving on finally to part C, another linear interpolation one. So 50% of the company had above what savings amount? So we're looking for the amount here where 50% of the company is going to be above that amount. So it's like we're going backwards from B. Here we're in part B, we were given the amount, we were looking for the percentage. Here in part C, we're going to be given the percentage, and we're going to be looking for the amount. So 50% of the company had above what savings amount? Well, definitely these guys here, and over here. Notice that if you sum all of these up, this is going to end up giving you what? 0.34. Like that. Okay, and then we can't just include all of these people here, because 0.34 plus 0.39, that's going to be above that 50%, right? And so we know that the amount is going to be somewhere between 50 and 100. We just have to figure out where is that going to be. Well, if you think about it, okay, if these three circled are 0.34, we're trying to get to 0.5, then what is going to happen is, if we're trying to get to 0.5, how much more do we need? We need 0.16 more out of the 0.39, Okay, does that make sense? So if I kind of, let's maybe take these relative frequencies and show it like horizontally, maybe that will help. So 0.39, 0.175, 0.14, and then 0.025. Okay, so what's happening here is, okay, we need 0.5 on this side right here, right? And then the other 0.5 is going to be on this side. So 0.025, 0.14, 0.175, that already gives us right there 0.34. So how much more is remaining for us to get 0.5 as a total over here? Well, we still need 0.16 out of this 0.39. So 0.16 of this 0.39 would give us that 0.5 that we are looking for, right? And so what we have to figure out is, okay, from here, from 50,000 to 100,000, so from 50 to 100, so these are the dollar terms here, that represented 0.39. From 0 to 0.39, right? So this was 39% of the company fell within this interval over here from 0 to 0.39. Well, we want to know what amount here in dollar terms, okay, let's call it X, is going to be equivalent to having so you got to be careful because this has to be 0.16. So 0.39 minus 0.16 would give us 0.23, right? So here, this amount right here and this amount, they have to be proportional. So notice that this amount here is 0.16 of the 0.39, so 0.16 of the 0.39, that has to equal this minus this, so 100 minus X over 100 minus 50 over the width of the entire interval, because we know the entire interval, let's maybe show this in green here, this entire interval from 50 to 100 is 0.39, right? Like that. Those are basically in line there, and so these reds here have to be proportionate, so 0.39 minus 0.23 or 0.16, because that's what we need here to get to the 0.5, that amount has to be in proportion to this amount, 100 minus X right here. And then we could just cross multiply and solve for X. And so when you do all that algebra, cross multiplying here, do the algebra, isolate for X, you end up with X equaling 79.487, right? So that's gonna be 79, and this isn't thousand, so basically above 79,487 approximately, right? So in the within that interval, this amount here is going to be 0.16 of the 0.39 plus 0.175 plus 0.14 plus 0.025 gives us that 50% that we are looking for. So part C, the answer is 79,487, okay? So anyway, it's a little tough to explain, so hopefully you understood the process there. You just basically gotta proportion it out. You could have also done it with the actual frequency or the number of people, because we know 50% of the company, if there's 120 people in the company, then we know that 50% is gonna be 60, right? So we could have also, if we dealt with like the frequency, what we could have done is basically like 3 plus 17 plus 21, that would give us what, 41? And so to get to 60 people, from 41 to 60, we still need 19 people out of this 47, right? So we could have also did 19 over 47. We need 19 people out of the 47. That proportion, right, from 50 to 100, this proportion here has to be this proportion of the total, right? So we could have also made that equal to like 100 minus X over 100 minus 50, like that. And if you cross multiply it here and solve for x, you should get a number that's very close. These relative frequencies were rounded, right? So it's not going to be like exactly, but it should give you something close. So you could have also used the actual frequency or the number of people, because we know 50% of the company is 60 people, right? So we would have had to figure out where is the top 60 people going to be happening. Definitely 3, 17, 21, and then there will be a remaining 19 to get out of the 47, and then that top 19 out of the 47 in this interval would be right here. So you'd have to solve for x to find what that proportion would be. All right, so that's another way to do it. And yeah, that's pretty much a wrap for the question. And that's a wrap for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you want to see more videos like this, please go to my website, allthingsmathematics.com. Over there, all of the videos are organized by chapter, by section. If you feel like you need tutoring at any point, you could also hit me up. My contact details are on the website. Enjoy your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.